So let us begin with Zbrush. And I want to take you through the interface of Zbrush. It's a little different than the interface of Zbrush Core Mini, which is the free version of Zbrush. So the big differences that you're going to get is between Zbrush Core Mini and Zbrush is first things first, the big difference is you get this whole entire tool um, palette or tool cabinet that comes with a bunch more modifiers and effectors that you can use for your model, right? And let me see. So with ZBrush Core Mini, you can see that they limit you. This is Core Mini, right? You can see it at the top here. If you can't see it, this is Core Mini. It says it at the top. You can see that it really limits what you can see, what you can do. It only gives you a few of these, whereas with ZBrush, I mean, you can change everything about the interface, the draw size, your brushes. You can bring in different types of insert meshes. It gives you the Dynamesh functions. You get all their plugins, things like that. All right. So using this, I'm just going to show you guys my basic, my setup for how I do most of my documents. They're very simple. It's nothing too complicated, but this is how, whenever I open up a ZBrush project and I'm going to start working, here's some of the things that I do. So I go into my document here, and the first thing that I usually don't like is I don't like this weird gradient that it gives you whenever you start. So I like to start with a solid background, and to get a solid background, right? You've got all of these tabs up here, which I'll go over here in a second, right? But I just go into my document settings, and this right here controls the range of this background environment. So now if I go back this way, right, I can definitely affect it to where it's a solid color all around, right? This is easier for me to look at whenever I'm modeling stuff. It doesn't distract too much from my model itself. And yeah, it's just a good solid way to start modeling. All right, so starting from the top row, let's look at, these these tabs, right? You've got your alpha tab, right? This contains all the things that you can do with your alphas. You can bring in your alphas, flip them, rotate them, invert them. This gives you a good import and settings for your alpha. All right, so this is the brush settings right here. You can do so much with your brush. You can affect the curve, the depth, sampling, the elasticity of it, right? How smooth it moves, the lazy feature of the mouse, right? And if you're using Sculptris Pro, you can enable it for your brush. You can do auto masking, different things like that. Anything that has to do with your brush. And when they're talking about your brush, they're talking about your pen, right? This is your pen pressure, right? So whenever I'm building with my clay brush or my sculpting brush or my standard brush, right? This panel right here helps me control every single thing about the properties. You can also at the bottom reset the current brush or reset all of your brushes. I wouldn't suggest you clicking it unless you need to reset it. All right. Whenever we get a little further in the class, I'll show you some of the brush settings that I use for different things. All right. So with your color, this just affects the color of the material and things like that. So it's the same panel that you have down here. It's just up here, right? You can then switch color, right? And as you guys see, whatever I do here, right, affects here. And the thing about these tabs is I can customize all of these as well. I can add different buttons. I can add different tabs to all of these spaces. Everything about the ZBrush interface is super customizable, so you can have um, a super unique set or a super unique interface to you that is representative of your workflow, right? So the more you get into ZBrush, the deeper you get into it, the more you're going to customize it to the way that you work, right? And because I teach a lot of my software, a lot of the programs that I use to teach, I have them as their default setting. So like whenever you see a lot of my stuff here, they're going to be in default because, well, what I want you to see is what you're going to see when you pull up the program, right? So I try to not change it as much as I can. I change some of it, but those are things that you guys can't probably see, like that I change. Like the document thing, like this is easy to change, so I showed you how to change that. But I'm not gonna go into the preferences, and you're not gonna see me with like a neon set background and stuff. Like I can show you how to do those things, but it's gonna be up to you to go in and change, the interface and stuff like that if you want to change it. Just because for teaching purposes, whenever somebody opens up ZBrush or ZBrush Core Mini, I want you to be able to see what I see, because that used to mess me up a lot of times when I was watching tutorials. Is like I have like the vanilla version of the software, and somebody else, like whoever's teaching the tutorial, has like got this super funky interface, and all their buttons aren't where my buttons are. It kind of takes me out of the learning of it. So I want to try to make that as so you're gonna whenever you see my stuff, it's gonna be super vanilla out of the box, because that's what you're probably gonna see when you open it. All right, so that's my little explanation there. But let's keep moving. I know we don't have a lot of time in this class. All right. So with that said, there's the document tab where you can use this to open up Lightbox documents. This is your Lightbox right here. This comes with a bunch of presets and tools that you can use to help speed up your workflow. It's a very dynamic. The thing about ZBrush is it's a very robust program, and it's only getting bigger and better as they iterate it over the years. And that's why they've made ZBrush Core and ZBrush Core Mini, is because they've realized that they've added so many features. Because a lot of when I first was using ZBrush, like a lot of the Z plugin page was like maybe like 4 or 5 items. Like now there's Bevel Pro. There's like a lot of these have been added post the original ZBrush, because they've realized, well, people are doing different ways of decimating. People are doing, different ways of transposing and moving. Transpose Master was something that didn't come custom with it. And you had to go to ZBrush page to download it and then install it. It was like, so like you guys coming in here are getting a very robust, well thought out software right at this point. And they're now offering stripped down versions for free. That's how big it is right now. So let's continue moving on. So draw, this tab is pretty cool. This is your draw size, your focal shift, your Z intensity. But the thing is, a lot of these too, you'll find is they're nested in these tabs, right? Some of these are parameters that you can show and drag out. So like if I wanted to, you can drag these guys around, see what's going on there, right? Oops. All right, this is just showing you your live screen right now. All right. So this is your draw tab. You can also affect your camera here. Whoops. All right, so whenever you've got your camera settings, you'll come here. A lot of those settings are also right here in this corner. So like I said, they nest different aspects of it in different places. All right. Well, and by clicking that, I can nest any of these tabs inside of ZBrush. So, and I don't do that because, like I said, it'll mess you guys up if you see like my dynamics over here and yours is like over. You're like, oh, that's crazy. All right. So that's the draw tab. Here you can change your intensity, mRGB to RGB to material channel. This is wherever you're gonna paint. That's another part of ZBrush you guys are gonna have to learn about is uh, these different tabs right here. These allow you to do different things, right? So this is whenever you're painting, you're sculpting. Uh, this allows you to paint with the material and on the color channel, right? So each of these stand for different things. RGB is just the color channel. M is the material channel. Z add is, think about that as up on when you're thinking of directions. Z sub is subtraction. That means anything you're painting or sculpting or whatever, it pushes back the other way, right? So, like I said before, a lot of these are nested in other places and they just show it to you in different ways. So don't get intimidated if you're seeing all of these buttons. You're like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. A lot of it's duplicates. Sometimes it's in 3 different places at once, right? So just remember that you're going to want to do this on your own too, right? Just do what I'm doing. Hover over it. See what's in there. Hey, it's okay, buddy. It's okay. Give me 1 second. Let me get this guy. Yeah, I'm doing the password. All right, guys, I'm back. All right, I had to take that guy out. All right, quick. All right, so let's keep going on this tab. All right, so yeah, edit, undo, whatever tool you're using, it'll pop up here. You can go back in time there, but it'll also show it represented as these little tick marks that are up here the more you do things. All right, so that's another thing you got to take into account. All right, so file you can open, save, save as, save next. Lightbox properties, you can open your XMD toolbox here. These are your like insert meshes and different things like that. And each of these, right, they might look like there's nothing. If you click on them, they open up, right? Import your textures, alphas, spotlight, tools, and different things like that in here. All right, so this layer feature here allows you to create new layers. You can clear the layer, fill the layer, bake, blend, flip. I mean, this is pretty robust, and this is like your lighting features right here. So if you're gonna finish your model and you want to set up a lighting system, you can add more lights, right? And every time you add a new light, right, it shows up as one of these dots around the model. And then whenever you're presenting your final model, you come in here, you'll light it using using these features. All right. All right. So after that, we've got our macro features. You can reload all the macros, but there are a lot of different macro tools that you can have. Append eyes, center mesh to the world. So and some of these are plugins that they've added along the way. Like I was saying about some of these over here. Like some of these, it's like somebody wrote them and they were like, oh, we like that a lot. Let's put it into the actual software. And they do that sometimes. So This is your marker settings. You can set markers here. Materials are here. Load, and here are some of your Lightbox materials. Lightbox has a bunch of different things, so um, you can do a lot with Lightbox. Wax modifier, and this is your material too, so you can customize a model or not a model. You can customize a material up to no end here, right? And then save it as a preset for yourself that you use for different things and use for different projects. So here's movie mode if you're gonna do like a still, not a still. If you're gonna do like a turntable or something like that, a time lapse, you can come in here and do that using this this panel right here. All right, and like I said before, a lot of these you click into them, there's more than meets the eye. Right, a lot of these are nested inside of other things, so we gotta remember that. So this is your picker, material selection. Here's your preferences, right? And man, I mean, each one of these is its your import export settings, picker settings, your custom UI, your interface. This is where you would go to customize your UI. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can even find people's UIs that they've customized online that you can download and bring into your own and use for yourself. All right. Let's see. So yeah, that's the preferences tab. It's got so much in it. I'm not going to go through and read every single one of them. Like I said before, I need you guys to familiarize yourself with a lot of this stuff. Go through it on your own time. All right. That was what my college years were doing is going through all of this and figuring out what some of these did. And some of these didn't even exist when I was in college. So, oops. Control Z. Oh, not let me Control Z. That's pressing Control X. That's why. All right. Render settings. Render settings are pretty straightforward. Whenever you're done with your model and you want to render it out, you click here for the best render, or you can have it set on preview render. If you hit render again, you can render out where these BPR renders, BPR render pass, right? So this then gives you the different passes that you'll use when it comes to putting an image together, whether it's your depth pass, your shadow pass, your ambient occlusion. It'll even render you out a mask and a SSS, which stands for subsurface scattering, which is like if you've got something that's like skin or like wax, that's what it's looking for. So the settings for all of that is also in here as well, right? And it feels like a lot, and that's why the stripped down version might be a little easier to kind of wrap your head around. But yeah, it comes with a lot of features that are packed in. All right. So here's your stencil. You can stencil it from an alpha or an IMM brush that they give you in here. So I mean, there's just so much, and this is another way to affect your brush stroke. Right, you can either have it drag select, which is essentially every time you click your mouse and you drag, right, it creates a stencil or an alpha of the image that you're using. And whenever you guys use it, you'll see what I mean. When it's using dots, it literally, whenever you're painting or drawing with your mouse or your pen, it's painting every single stroke as a dot, right? Think about that. And then whenever you're doing freehand, it literally just acts like you're using a pen or pencil. And if you're using the spray feature, well, think about it. It's in the name. It's spraying whatever alpha or brush you have around. And then the rectangle, super straightforward as well. It's using a rectangle to draw whatever you're drawing. right? So that is the stroke, and then you can modify that as well. It's got the Sculptris Pro settings if you're using Sculptris Pro. I didn't even know Sculptris still existed. I thought they put everything in ZBrush Core Mini now, but what do I know? Your lazy mouse settings. The lazy mouse settings are pretty important because what happens is when your regular drawing hand might be a little herky jerky. You might not have the smoothest, most fancy gliding hands on the planet. That's okay. ZBrush has something that will help you, right? You got the little jittery fingers. You've been drinking too many Red Bulls, right? You got one of these going. Lazy Mouse is here to help you. With the Lazy Mouse feature, whenever you draw a stroke, it makes it so that your drawing motion is a lot smoother, right? So it's not gonna look like this, right? It's gonna look more flowing, like you know what you're doing, right? That's the purpose of the Lazy Mouse. And then you can increase the size and the width and how long it drags to you can get a more smooth line whenever you're drawing things. All right, so that's the lazy functions. The curve mode allows you to do something similar. Whenever you're using your brush. I mean, these are just all your brush and flow settings. If you've ever used Photoshop, that would be what the setting is. It's essentially your flow, how your pen pressure, kind of those kind of settings. If you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, well then hopefully my previous explanation helped. Let's go to texture. This is where if you had some textures that you wanted to use, some that you wanted to bring in, they already have some in themselves. These are 1024 by 1024, but I'm pretty sure you can go up to 4K, 6K, whatever you need texture-wise. And you can use this for your background or foreground, or you can use it to paint on an object. Right? There's a lot of different things that you can use their texture features from. All right. You can even get the textures from the current mesh that you are using. So that is the textures tab. Then you've got your tools tab, and in your tools tab, right, you've got load tools, and these are your Z tools. These are tools that you've made specifically inside of ZBrush. So like if I'm working on a project for a car and I'm modeling an entire car, and I have a ZBrush file where I made wheels or I made a tire, a single tire. Well, I can save that single tire out as a Z tool, come back into my main project which has the entire car, and then bring in that tire as a Z tool and then use it for my car or any other project that I'm using to model cars. That's what essentially a tool, or whenever it's saying you want to load a tool, it's saying, do you want to load one of your essentially your pre-made or your custom models that you've had made in here? Do you want to bring it in and use it? So that's what that means there. All right.
Is that kind of the same as so on ZBrush the Mini? They have those little chisel features where it has like the eyes and the nose and everything. Same thing like that.
It's kind of like that, but those are more like IMM brushes. So like let me just make this into a Z tool. Let me draw. So with those, like if you look in here, those IMM brushes are more like these, where you can insert objects in. But a Z tool is like if I made this right here and then I saved it out. If I let me see, let's make this into a thing and then edit it. right? If I save this out, this would be a Z tool. And then I could bring it into another project, right? So if I hit save as da 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 da, it's gonna save it as a .z tool. You see that right there? That file format. It's gonna save it as a Z tool, and then in another project I can load it as a Z tool, and it'll just bring it in like that. So it's a little different. They do the same thing though, right? In the sense of, hey, it just brings in a mesh that you had somewhere else, right? The same function, just a different way of going about it, which is ZBrush for you. Like, it'll do the same thing 10 different ways.
Okay. Right on.
Let's see. All right, yeah. So where was I at? Transform, Tools tab. Yep. All right. So yeah, the Tools tab it just has so much. The nano mesh feature is a feature they introduced like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I want to say they introduced nano mesh. I could be wrong. I don't fact check me on that. But nano mesh is like if you wanted to make chainmail, right? And you wanted to actually have every single chain in the mail. That's what nano meshes are for. So it takes simple meshes and makes them and turns them into really complex shapes and geometry. So like I might have like these three little rings, and then I can tell it to use nanomesh to array that around like a sheet of paper or something, and then turn the sheet of paper into that chain mail or something like that, and that's what nanomesh is. So it's a it's like proxy data, right? It's like having proxy geometry, right? I can have this simple piece of geometry and then use that as a proxy to bring in more refined, more smaller objects using it. So it's a way to save on processing power and computer machine things that I don't know very well, but yeah, that's what it's for. It's to save on memory and things like that. So that is what that is for. I mean, there's just so many little things that I can go into about ZBrush and like from just deformation. I mean, and like I said before, all of these things, right? All of these exist in here, right? So over here, all of those things in the tool tab, they're all it's the exact same tab you're going to use over here. So when I go over all of the tools over here, right, don't be surprised if I'm like, well, I don't have to go over this because it's literally identical to the tool tab that's up here. All right. So the transform tools allow you to transform your object, move your object, scale your object outside of it. And a lot of things that give students hiccup is knowing when their object is in edit mode versus just object mode, right? So right now, the active mesh is currently in 3D mode. Would you like to switch to 2.5D mode? Do not switch. All right. So now I am, let's go edit, let's go switch. So now I'm no longer in that poly mesh 3D mode. Now I can create as many as I want. And the only way for me to go back to editing any of these is if I hit the edit button. And now I can edit this singular one, right? So that's how that works. So until I stop creating more of these, and these all exist, right? Until I stop creating this by going into my edit, they all exist right there. So and that's the only one that I'm now editing. So that's one of those things that kind of gives students the hiccup. right? And like I said before, these transform tools, they're the same ones that are right over here, right? Like I said before, guys, a lot of this stuff is not in just one place, it's in multiple places. So when you think, oh my God, this is so overwhelming, this is so much, it's really not. A lot of it is duplicates of each other, all right? So when it comes to the Z plugins, these are plugins that ZBrush has added. Some of them started with ZBrush. I don't know which ones. I can't remember now. But like I said before, when I first started this, it was like three of these when I first started. Now there's there's so many of these, and they all do different things. The Subtool Master is super cool. Um, it allows you to do different things to a mesh that might not be sound when it comes to its XYZ position, its scale transforms, and different things like that. It allows you to do different things with it. All right. Um, let's see. Scale Master allows you to fix scale issues in a model that you may have. Because up until they introduced Scale Master, you had to take your models into a different program like 3ds Max, Blender, or something like that to scale it, get your scale right, right? If you make somebody like 6 feet in 3ds Max, well, if you bring him into Blender or something, that person might be 600 feet, right? Or if you bring him into ZBrush and you do a bunch of stuff, the stuff that you made for that character might not fit that character because it might be 60 feet now, right? So what this Scale Master does is it says, all right, well, if you're going into a different program, what do I need to transfer or resize that subtool to make sure that it fits your character properly? Or if it's coming in, right, what do I need to scale it to? So it gives you the options of, hey, millimeters, centimeters, inches, or feet. What do I need to scale it to, and by what factor? Right? Is it a factor of 2, factor of 4? Right, on the X, Y, and Z axis. So these are things. These are tools that you guys are going to need when you run into certain issues. But if you don't run into those issues, you might never encounter those tabs. All right, and a lot of the times when it comes to learning stuff like this, the problem isn't what you know, it's what you don't know that you don't know, right? So like if you've never ran into n-gons, well, you don't know that there's going to be a situation and how you're going to fix it, right? The things that you don't know, you don't know. So um, what I would implore you guys to do as 3D artists or aspiring 3D people is put yourselves in situations where you're going to encounter the most problems, right? If you're doing it's fun and nice to do easy projects, right? Things that you know you can knock out of the park, right? It gives you the feel goods, right? If it gives you the ooh, I'm doing something. I'm perpetually moving, right? But what you really want to do as an artist is challenge yourselves. If you truly want to get better at whatever it is, whatever part of the industry you're working on, if you want to challenge yourselves, you have to seek out the things that you're not good at, right? And you have to attack those things and make those things obstacles for yourselves. Because when you go through those things on the job, if they show up, you know how to deal with it, right? You know how to deal with, all right, the mesh is 300,000 polys, and the boss is saying I need it to be 150K or less, or it can't make it in, right? What do you do in that situation? What do you start cutting out? What do you start, breaking down in the mesh? Where do you start optimizing? What do you look for first? Are you going for silhouette value? Or are you going for poly count, right? There's a lot of things that you're going to need to know that you don't know you need to know right now that only experience will give you. And that's not experience that I can give to you in just one 3-month class, right? You're going to have to, on your own, work on projects, work on, I can only give you so many projects. I can only refer you to so many, like, I only give you so many assignments and actually so many quizzes. You're going to have to go and mess up a bunch of stuff on your own time as well, right? Like, you're going to have to ruin a bunch of models, right? You're going to model a bunch of stuff. They're going to be ugly as hell. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're going to be ugly. They're not going to look good. But what you're doing is you're building up that callus. You're getting better at it, little by little, like a small portion. It's like a RPG. Like you're just collecting little bounties. You're collecting little things to help you along the way. You might fail the quest, right? But you learn something about yourself along the journey, right? You might take on this big project, but you bit off more than you can chew. You fall off the top of it, and you don't know, you learn something. You learn something a little bit as you go. And the more you challenge yourself and put yourself in those situations, the better you guys are going to really get at this stuff. So, without further ado, let me get to the last two tabs, which is the Z scripts here. So if you download any scripts online, if you find any that you like, you can come up to the Z scripts tab here. You can reload or load in whatever scripts you find. And these scripts are kind of like, they can be plugins, right? Like Z scripts can be anything. They'll do anything for you. Yeah, they're pretty handy whenever you find some good ones. All right. And then there's the help tab. If you click any of these, it'll take you to what's new in ZBrush, search for online documents, and things like that. So that is pretty much the ZBrush top bar in a nutshell. If you click here, it'll take you to this home page. If you click here, this is the Lightbox, and we'll talk about the Lightbox tools another day, but the Lightbox tools are pretty cool. They have projects that you can use as demos. They've got different tools like an crochet model in T pose and in A pose. They've got a few animals. They've got remeshing tutorials and things like that that you can use. They've even got brushes. They've got textures in here that you can use and bring into the texture tab. They've got alphas that you can use. These alphas are absolute garbage, by the way, like absolute garbage. I don't like these. I make my own. I give a bunch away for free, so I will definitely link to where you guys can get the best free alphas that you're going to ever use. And if you're ever interested, I can show you how to make your own custom alphas that you can use for ZBrush. All right. And then you've got materials that they give out. They've been scantily making those, so they're okay. The noise modifier, this is in your, let me clear this out. This is for your light box. So if you have, not for your light box, this is for your surface noise. So if you have an object and you want to add some surface noise to it, you can go into this tab. If you use your noise maker itself, right? You've got this noise tab. So I've got my little star here, and if you see, this noise maker allows me to make different types of noise for it, right? And let's see, let's hit OK on this. But if I go here into this tab, I can use these to make it. And then if I wanted to, I can then come in here and edit out this noise maker. So it's a pretty cool thing to add, like some destruction and different things like that to your model. So like if I come in here, I can change things like the scale, the strength of it, make it, erode a lot more. And I'm guessing it's using some sort of tessellation, deformation, and to kind of cut into the geometry and give us what we're looking for. So These are pretty cool. There's a lot of cool tools inside of ZBrush that I think you guys would, it would be cool to get familiar with. And the fibers are pretty cool too. It's like hair essentially. So like if you double click on it, it allows you to make and you can edit the hair in here under fiber mesh, right? So you can fix the hair to whatever you want it to be, or so that this is essentially the hair plugin. It's okay. It could be better, but it gets the job done. All right. All right. So they've also got arrays that you can use, different grids for this is for like if you're gonna sculpt a human head or something like that. You can use that their template that they have. All right, and then they've got some documents. That's if you have documents, and these are projects. And you can bring these in, right? And what I would do is, if you like any of these kind of things, right, pull them out and start examining them. Because what that'll show you is how whoever's making it, what they're doing with their layer structure, what they're doing with their subdivisions, what they're doing with even some of their modeling and texture work. So, it's okay. And yeah, so it'll show you how they're doing some of their render stuff. And don't forget that if you pull over to the right here, you can scroll past to see. So these are different cool little projects that you can open up and see what's inside of them. All right. So here are some filters for you as well. So if you want to use some of these filters, test them out to see what they look like, what they do. Um, that's another thing. And then this is the quick save tab. Essentially, it just saves whatever you've got going on as a quick little ZPR, a Z project. All right, and these are some of your spotlight shapes. This is how you can bring in the alphas and make different. You can make different kits and different alphas and stuff with them, and use them to make different arrays, different models, things like that. All right, so that is pretty much your light box, and then you've got live boolean if you want to use this feature. It's pretty cool because it allows you to, if you know what booleans are, which is the process of like taking one mesh, inserting it into another, and using that mesh as an operand to remove it. So if I had, um, I've got these two shapes. If I intersected them as a boolean, right? Let me change to my full screen for the live cool demonstration, right? Imagine if I had um, these two shapes overlapping. A boolean, right, would allow this smaller shape to go through this bigger shape, and you would be left with a hole there, right? So that's what a boolean is in the real world. But what this live boolean allows you to do is it allows you to do that with ZBrush and a lot of their objects. It's pretty cool. If I get a chance to show you, I will definitely show you guys that. All right. So now I've pretty much given you guys a rundown of ZBrush Core Mini, ZBrush itself. The rest of this, they're the same as ZBrush Core Mini. So the left side, you guys have seen this. This is like the gradient filter. This is where you find your materials. So, and this is the same as ZBrush Core Mini. apart from maybe the solo, which allows you to isolate your object or isolate whatever subtool you have selected. Don't let me say object because that's wrong. Yeah. Other than that, they're the exact same. For your assignment, I want you guys to go into the anatomy, and what you guys are gonna pick is, let's see, you guys are gonna do a study of one of the facial features, right? For your assignment, I want you guys to go through, if it's a nose, maybe an eye, maybe a mouth. Like, just pick one of these facial features, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna do a study of it, right? You're gonna do a a drawing and a 3D study. Wherever you do that, if you do it in full ZBrush or ZBrush Mini, that's fine. So the idea is you would find whatever your reference is, right? If it's a mouth, if it's a nose, if it's an eye, if it's an ear, right? Whatever it is, you're going to find some decent reference on it, and you are just going to focus on that specific model. So whatever you're going to do with that is, let's see, let's create a new sphere. So if I decide that what I'm going to use is a sphere to start my my modeling, I'm going to click edit, turn off live boolean here, all right, and I'm just going to use my reference to start to sculpt this piece of body part out. All right, so let me say I'm going to pick the nose, right? If I picked the nose, I would then use, I'd start with BMV, which is the move tool. And if you guys saw my keyboard on the screen, it should show you what I'm doing. All right. So what I did was I just picked BMV, which is B is the brush tool, M is the move section, M is the move section, V is the move tool, right? So I just used 3 clicks on the keyboard to get to a brush I wanted. This is something that you guys are going to start to get a little better with when it comes to modeling. The better you get, the more you start using hotkeys to kind of move around and navigate. All right, so I'm going to use that. If I hit X on my keyboard, remember that brings up my symmetry tool. All right, so if I pull, I'm using these brackets to increase the size of my brush. It also, if I hit spacebar, if I hold down spacebar, it does the same thing. If I pull, right, I can affect my brush, my focal length, right, things like that if I hit spacebar. But I'm using the brackets to go up and down, all right? And then now I can just use, make this polymesh 3D. Whoops. Let's make the polymesh 3D. And now I can pull, right? Pull and push the mesh in any way I need to, right? I'm focusing on just this one body part. Remember that I'm focusing on just the nose. No other body part comes into this. just the nose. If you pick the eye, you're just doing the eye. If you're picking the lips, you're just doing the lips. If you're doing the mouth, you're just doing the mouth. If you're doing the ears, you're just doing the ears. Remember that, right? That's part of this assignment is following instructions. So now I am just studying this reference that I have here, right? I'm using my my move brush to and pull this, push and pull this model around as I need to. All right. All right. So I'm gonna do B, C, and B. And what that is the clay buildup brush. I'm gonna reduce the size of, all right, of my brush itself, my brush tool, my brush diameter, right, by using these brackets. And what I'm doing now, boom, is just using that to build up some clay. Whoops. Using that to build up some clay. And if I want to smooth, I'm going to hold down shift and that just smooths out the mesh. All right. And remember, what I'm doing here is I'm focusing on what's making this nose a nose. Right? I'm making sure that I focus on things like the grove, the notches, right? Let's see. Right. So,
Hey, I have a question.
uh-huh.
Is the thing that I'm supposed to be seeing the actual like nose? Like it says detailed analysis of the form of the nose. Because you keep saying that you're moving things around, but all I see is just like the nose models, and
Yeah,
so
I
I'm
was
not
just
really
about to
sure.
say that.
Oh, you guys are.
Yeah, it was the
Oh, okay, now we can see
now we
it.
see it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You guys couldn't see that. My bad. All right, good to know. All right, yeah. Whoops. All right, let's go back then. Whoops. All right, so if you guys look up here too, there's a tab right here, and what this is like your undo. So what you can do is slide back and forth if you're not seeing, if you want to go back in time. All right, so let's go forward. Actually, let me just start. So essentially, all I did was I just started pushing and pulling. Uh, so, whoops. If you make any other changes, then so I'm just pulling, pushing and pulling the mesh, pushing and pulling, adding a little bit of clay at a time to the mesh, right? And then I'm adding some of the bigger features like the nostrils now, right? And the reason is because like I said, I was looking at this reference, which I know now is in front of what you guys are looking at. So now we move this. So what I'm doing is I'm constantly going back and forth from my actual reference to my model because if I'm not looking at it constantly, I might be missing something. All right. So what you want to do is maybe even get into the position of the nose, right? Get into the position of it, and then you can start to look at it. So I'm looking at these features. I'm looking at even how some of these, how some of this geometry flows, right? You've got a lot of this good topology flow here. You've got a little bit of this little septum thing that people get their septum pierced. I don't know what the official names of these are, right? But I'm looking at some of these and I'm trying to put in some of these features into the model that I'm looking at, right? I'm trying to put in like you see this little dip right here that she's got or he's got. I'm trying to throw that in. And then if you see right here, off comes what looks like a little bit of fat deposit or a little bit of, there's something deposited here. So I'm just trying to mimic this as best I can. All right. So with that said, I'm going to use my move tool again. All right. I'm just going to use my move tool, and then I'm going to move this guy up. Smooth some of this stuff out. BCB, no, BCB. That is the, and then if let's do X. Alright. We've got kind of like and the problem right now is my intensity is so high. So I'm going to bring that Z intensity, that Z add, which is essentially up on the keyboard, right? Think about it's going up, Z add, right? If I hit Alt on my keyboard, it'll do the opposite. It'll subtract. So I just want to, kind of build up a little bit of clay there. Whoops. I'm going to hit X on my keyboard. And what that does is, remember, X is symmetry. So now if I take away some of that, and I can bring some of that back, right? And even my smooth is too much. It's at 100% intensity right now. I'm going to cut that in a little less than half. All right, so, all right. Got kind of like a little bulb at the end of their nose, and then they've got this little septum thing, and then alright, and we can just build this back up. Alright, and to dig into it, like I said, I've got my Z add on, but if I hold down Alt with my Z add, right, I can dig right back into that bad boy. Alright? And I'm holding down Shift to smooth. Alright? And this is what you guys should be doing too, is going back and forth from your model, making sure that you're taking a look at the reference. Right? So here's my reference. Boom, I'm looking at it, making sure that I'm getting some of these parts in there. Alright? So if you look right here, it looks like the septum comes out, right? You see that it's, if you're looking at just some of this geometry stuff that's going on right here, it looks like it's convex, and then it goes into something that's concave, and this one starts concave right here and then goes out to something convex. So this is how I would represent that. All right. First thing I would do is I need a little more to my face so that I can add that. So I'm just gonna build a little bit more. Just gonna build a little more clay for myself. All right. The way you guys should be thinking about it is I'm just working with clay. All right. I've got unlimited digital clay, and I can build it however I want to build it. All right. So I'm just gonna build part of this face up a little bit. All right. Build it up. Alright, now I can even use the move tool to move around some of these pieces just because, let's just move some of this stuff around. I shift, hold the shift down, and I can do that. All right. And another thing you got to remember is everybody's nose and facial features are just a little bit different. So we've all got nuances in here that make our face essentially super unique. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let's go to my geometry. I'm going to yeah. All right, so I'm going to just do a quick Dynamesh on this guy. Let me show you what you guys what Dynamesh does. So, just because I to look at. All right, so what Dynamesh does is if you see all of this cool geometry flow that I've got going, and the problem is the moment I start pushing and pulling this, I'm messing up a lot of this geo, and it's hard to sculpt on really funky looking geo like this just because it's pulling. We're not getting good quad topology here. So what I'm gonna do to kind of alleviate some of my problems is I'm gonna do a process called Dynamesh, right? And if you're using ZBrush Core Mini, it might do this automatically, but with ZBrush, you have to tell it when to Dynamesh. All right, so now I've got new, much smoother geo that I can use. All right, I'm just gonna smooth all of this stuff out right quick. Smooth all it out. Smooth it all out. All right. So the problem right now that I'm seeing is I might have put way too much geo in it. Because what you're gonna do is if you've got too much geo, what can happen is it makes your mesh a lot harder to work with, and I think I've done just that. So let me look at my geometry again. So I'm just gonna control Z back to here, and I'm gonna reduce what the resolution is gonna be. Let's see if, there we go. This is much better. All right, this is much better. The geometry isn't perfect yet. We've got quite a bit of n-gons here, but when it comes to, I can just Z remesh this if I really wanted to, right? If I then Z remesh it, you can see how much cleaner this geometry is, right? But I don't have all of that crazy stretching going on, right? Now I can get back to um, doing what I was trying to do with that model, which is right here where we saw the septum kind of go. It goes into something. So it starts off like this, where it's out, and then it dips back in. So right here it dips back in, and this does the opposite where it dips in right here, and then it actually, but you guys probably can't see that unless I turn this back off. Right, so now we can see that, right, and you can then imagine how the mouth would then come and fit around that shape. And if I hold shift down, I'm smoothing it back out, right? The idea is the idea is you don't want it to be too obvious. You want it to be subtle. Let the markers that you're placing in here, let the features you're placing be super subtle so that it's saying, oh, that's because of this bone or this muscle that's doing that without actually like beating it over whoever the audience's head is. So that's why this is kind of cool. And you can see this part of the nose kind of turned a little Gumby-ish, right? It kind of melted, and some people might have a nose like this, but not this guy. That's not what his nose is supposed to look like. So if I go into the B, D, and S, that's the Damien standard brush, right? And that lets me kind of cut into the model a little bit. If I hit down Shift, I'm gonna go B, C, and B again, and this just brings up my clay buildup brush. So now I can build up some of that clay. And if you remember from our previous mesh, we have this little muscle right here, right? That goes right through there like so. And if we put that in, right, we're gonna start to get something that looks pretty, pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know what that noise is, but I gotta fix that. All right. So just like that. So just build this up a little bit more. Build this up a little bit more. Smooth it out a little bit. Right? Even if you want to take a picture of your own eye or your own nose or something and try to use that for the model, that's fine, you know. But you guys should start working on studies, right? You're studying a single body part, right? A focused exercise. You're focusing on one thing and one thing only. Because what happens is when you guys try to focus on the entire face, you miss the nuances of these individual pieces. So, what I'm trying to do is take you guys to take a step back, right? You guys saw what the entire model that you did was, right? You guys did a whole face, a whole bust, right? Now, what we're going to do is let's deconstruct that. Let's start with just a body part, right? You do each single body part, you understand them a little bit better, then you try to bring all of that together in a final piece. And you'll see the difference in how you approached it before and versus how you approached it when you first started the class. All right. So this is your assignment. Does anybody have any questions for me? All right. So now let me post mine so that you guys know that I do my assignment. So you guys should too. This is why. All right. Let me post this in the chat. Boom. Wait. Where's my other assignment? All right. So this is what your assignment board should look like so far. It should be the head sculpt, and then now your assignment for this week is to work on a single body part. Sculpting a single body part. All right. Does anybody have any questions for me? Comments, concerns?
I have a question.
Ask away. Ask away.
So I guess it's normal that my ZBrush doesn't have that many options right now, right?
If you have ZBrush Core Mini,
And that is what we should be using, right? ZBrush Core Mini.
you can use either, right? The idea isn't the stuff isn't software specific. I'm not quizzing you in any of the software stuff. I'm quizzing you or I'm giving you assignments based on sculpting, and both of them do the same thing.
Okay, sounds good then.
Yep. Right. Like here's my approach to it is my job is only a little bit of it is to teach you how to use the software. Right? The software part of it is actually mostly on you to use the software because I can show you my way of using the software, but unless you go in there, you click some buttons, you move stuff around, you're doing different things, you're not going to get comfortable with it. So that part of it, well, that's on you. What I'm going to teach you or try to teach you or try to impart on you is the the job of character sculpting, right? The ins and out, the nuts and bolts of being an actual character sculptor. What you need to think about, what you need to be putting into your mental, so that you know, all right, whenever I'm hitting these models, I'm hitting the right strides, I'm hitting the right points. My model looks good. That's my job. Your job is to go and understand the software by yourself. ZBrush is only a part of it. The most important part of this class is the sculpting aspect of it. So, yeah. ZBrush Mini, ZBrush Regular. If you're using Mudbox and you're proficient at it and you can use it very well and you understand it, go for it. The idea of this class is so you understand sculpting. ZBrush is just the software. All right. Any other questions for me? All right. If you guys don't have any questions, you guys are free to go for the day. I'll see you guys on Monday. There is a quiz that you guys should see on the Brightspace. It's super easy. They're super, straightforward questions. Let's see. Other than that, yeah, that's it. I will post this class inside of Brightspace, and I will throw it also in the general chat just in case you missed it. If anybody you know missed it, you can send them a link to it and they can watch it as well. All right. I appreciate you guys pulling up to class today. Thank you guys for asking the questions and being, and participating. I look forward to the next class.
See you later.
All right,
Have
thanks.
a good day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Later.